I spend most of my days online. I love being on the internet because I can talk to people from all over the world. It's easy to find new friends, and I can connect with people who like the same things I do. One day, I joined a group for music lovers. I've always been passionate about music, and it felt nice to meet others who shared my love for it. In this group, I met a boy named Jake. He had a profile picture that looked like someone who really loved music, just like me. He seemed kind and funny in his messages. He said he liked the same bands I did, and we talked about our favorite songs for hours. I felt like I finally found someone who understood me. Every message from Jake made me smile, and I couldn't wait to talk to him again. We started chatting every day. At first, it felt like a dream. Jake seemed perfect. He always knew what to say to make me feel special. He told me that I was smart and beautiful, even though we had never met in person. We talked about everything, our lives, our hopes, and our dreams. Sometimes we stayed up late into the night just sending messages to each other. Every time I saw his name pop up on my phone, my heart would race. One day, Jake asked me if I wanted to meet him in person. I was nervous but excited. It felt like the perfect moment. We had been talking for weeks, and I trusted him. He seemed so real to me. He told me that we could meet at a cafe in the city. It would be our first time seeing each other face to face. I was a little scared, but I knew I had to go. This could be the beginning of something wonderful. The days leading up to our meeting felt so long. I couldn't stop thinking about Jake. What would he look like? Would he be as nice in real life as he was online? I tried to imagine what it would be like to finally meet him. I even bought a new dress for the occasion. I wanted to look my best. I told my best friend, Maria, about the meeting, and she seemed a little worried. She said I should be careful and make sure Jake was who he said he was. But I brushed it off. I trusted him, and I was sure everything would be fine. The day finally came. I woke up early and started getting ready. I was nervous, but I tried to calm myself down. I took a deep breath, looked in the mirror, and smiled. I was going to meet Jake. I couldn't wait to see him in person. I arrived at the cafe a little early. I sat down at a table by the window, my heart beating fast. I checked my phone to see if Jake had messaged me. He hadn't. I wasn't too worried at first. He probably just needed some time to get ready. But as the minutes passed, I started to feel anxious. I looked around the cafe, but I didn't see anyone who looked like Jake. I checked my phone again. There was still no message from him. I started to wonder if something had gone wrong. Maybe he couldn't make it after all. I thought about texting him, but I didn't want to seem too eager. I decided to wait a little longer. But time went on, and Jake didn't show up. I felt a knot in my stomach. I looked at the clock. It had been over an hour since we were supposed to meet. Where was he? Why hadn't he texted me? Maybe he had forgotten. Maybe something had come up. But the longer I waited, the more I started to doubt. I thought about what Maria had said. Was I being too trusting? Should I have been more careful? I checked my phone again. Still nothing from Jake. I started to feel embarrassed. Was I just being foolish? I couldn't understand why he wasn't here. I felt like I was waiting for nothing. My excitement turned into disappointment. I had built up this moment in my mind, and now it felt like it was falling apart. I wondered if I had misunderstood everything. Maybe Jake wasn't who he said he was. I stood up and walked to the cafe's entrance. I looked outside, hoping to see someone who looked like Jake, but there was no one. I walked back to my table, feeling defeated. I sat down and checked my phone once more. This time, there was a new message. It was from Jake. I felt a little relieved, but when I opened it, my heart sank. The message was short and cold. It didn't sound like Jake at all. He said he couldn't meet me and apologized for the change of plans. He said he was busy and wouldn't be able to make it today. There was no explanation, no reason why he had been late or why he couldn't show up. It didn't make sense. I stared at the screen, trying to understand what was happening. This wasn't the boy I had been talking to. This wasn't the boy I had imagined meeting. I felt tears well up in my eyes. I was confused. Why had he said all those sweet things to me if he wasn't going to show up? Why had he lied? The excitement I had felt before turned into anger and sadness. I had been so sure that Jake was real, but now I wasn't so sure anymore. I tried to calm myself down. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe Jake had a good reason for canceling. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been tricked. I opened the message again, hoping to find something that would make sense of it. But there was nothing. I decided to leave the cafe. My heart felt heavy, and my mind was racing. I kept asking myself why I had trusted someone I had never met in real life. I had been so excited, so ready to meet Jake, but now I just felt foolish. The questions started to pile up in my mind. Who was Jake really? Was his name even Jake? Why hadn't he showed up? As I walked out of the cafe, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this go. I had to find out the truth. I couldn't just sit and wonder. I needed answers, and I was going to get them. I walked home feeling confused and sad. I couldn't stop thinking about the message Jake had sent me. Why hadn't he come? Why did he lie to me? It didn't make sense. I felt like I had been tricked, and I couldn't shake that feeling. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I had trusted him, and he had hurt me. When I got home, I went straight to my room and sat at my desk. I pulled out my phone and opened Jake's profile. I had looked at it a million times before, but now it felt different. I had believed everything he told me. He had said he was kind and honest, but now I wasn't so sure. I looked at his photos again, trying to see if there was anything strange about them, but they all seemed normal. There was nothing obvious that made me think something was wrong, but I knew something wasn't right. I spent the next hour scrolling through his messages. They all seemed nice. He had always said the right things, but now every word felt fake. I wondered how I could have missed the signs. How had I believed someone I had never met in real life? I thought about what Maria had said to me earlier. She had warned me to be careful. She had told me to make sure Jake was who he said he was. I had ignored her advice. Now I wished I had listened. I decided to look deeper. I searched his name online, hoping to find something that would explain why he had canceled our meeting. Maybe there was some mistake. Maybe he had a good reason. But when I typed his name into the search bar, nothing came up. There were no results, no pictures, nothing. I tried typing his name with the word musician because he had said he was into music, but still, nothing appeared. I felt a strange mix of worry and anger. If Jake was really who he said he was, there should have been something about him online. I decided to search for his photos. I saved one of them and ran it through a reverse image search. My hands shook as I waited for the results. It felt like a test, and I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. But when the results came back, my stomach dropped. The picture wasn't Jake's. It was a photo of someone else. The person in the photo was real, but it wasn't the boy I had been talking to. I looked at the other pictures Jake had sent me, and I ran them through the same search. All of them led to different people. Jake wasn't Jake. He had been using fake pictures. I felt a wave of shock wash over me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The person I had been talking to for weeks wasn't real. It was all a lie. I felt like my world had crashed down around me. All those late night talks, all the sweet messages had been fake. I had trusted a person who wasn't even real. I sat back in my chair, feeling lost. I didn't know what to do next. I thought about messaging him again, asking why he had lied. But what if he didn't respond? What if I never heard from him again? I couldn't keep thinking about it. I had to do something. I decided to go back to his profile. I needed to find out who he really was. I looked at his bio again. There was nothing special about it. It was just the same stuff he had told me before. He liked music, he loved meeting new people, and he was looking for someone special. But now I saw it all differently. It was just a story he had created to make me believe in him. I tried searching for him one more time, this time using a different search engine. I didn't expect much, but I couldn't stop myself. Maybe there was something I had missed. After all, Jake was so convincing. He had sounded like someone I could trust. But again, there was nothing. No real name, no real pictures, no trace of him anywhere. I felt frustrated. I had been fooled, and now I had no idea what to do. Should I tell everyone what had happened? Should I warn others about him? I didn't know if anyone else had been tricked by him or if I was the only one. I felt embarrassed. I couldn't believe that I had fallen for a lie like this. I wanted to give up, to forget about Jake and move on. But I couldn't. There was something inside me that needed to know the truth. I needed to find out who this person really was. If he had lied to me, he might have lied to other people too. I couldn't just ignore it. I spent the next few days trying to find more clues. I looked at every message Jake had sent me, trying to find something I had missed. I noticed that he never talked much about his real life. He never told me where he lived or where he went to school. He only told me things about his hobbies and interests, but nothing that would give me any real clues about who he was. I tried to search for him using different names and different keywords, but nothing came up. It felt like Jake didn't even exist. It was like he had created a whole new person just to talk to me. I wondered how many other girls he had tricked. How many other people were out there believing in him like I had. I couldn't believe that someone would go to such lengths to deceive people. I didn't know if I should be angry or sad. I felt both. I was angry that Jake had lied to me, but I was also sad because I had believed him. I had trusted him. And now I felt like I had lost something important. My trust in people had been broken. I didn't know who I could believe anymore. I felt alone, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let this go. I needed to find out the truth, not just for me, but for everyone else who might have been hurt by Jake's lies. I wasn't going to give up. I had to keep looking. I had to find out who Jake really was. I couldn't stop thinking about Jake. The more I tried to forget him, the more questions filled my mind. Who was he really? Why had he lied to me? I had to find the truth. I couldn't just let it go. So I decided to keep looking. I needed to know who this person was, and I was willing to do whatever it took. I spent hours searching the internet. I went back to his profile again, looking for something I might have missed. But there was nothing new. His profile still had the same photos, the same bio, and the same information. Everything seemed perfect, but I knew it wasn't real. I had already discovered that the pictures weren't of him. I wondered if they were stolen from someone else. Maybe they were just pictures he had found online. I knew I couldn't stop looking. I decided to go deeper into his social media. I went through all of his posts, looking for clues. I found nothing unusual at first. It was all just music posts, like the ones he had shared with me. But then something caught my eye. There was one photo that looked different. It was an old photo taken at a concert. I could see a blurry figure in the background, but the face wasn't clear. I zoomed in, but the photo was too unclear to tell much. Still, it made me think, what if this was a real picture of him? What if it was a clue to who he really was? I decided to search for this concert online. Maybe the event was famous, and maybe there were more pictures of it. If I could find more information, I might be able to learn something about him. I found the concert online and I saw that it had been a big event. There were many people who had attended. I looked at the photos from the event, hoping to find Jake in one of them. I spent hours scrolling through the pictures. I saw a lot of people enjoying the concert, but none of them looked like the person in Jake's photos. I felt frustrated. Was Jake just a name, a fake person? It seemed like everything I found led to more questions and not enough answers. Then I remembered something. Jake had told me he loved a specific band. He had even mentioned a few songs they had written. I decided to search for information about the band, hoping it might lead me to Jake. Maybe he had posted something online about meeting them, or maybe there was something in his past that I could find. I spent another few hours searching for this band, looking through old posts and interviews. I didn't find anything directly about Jake, but I found something interesting. There was a blog post about the band's recent tour, and in one of the comments, I saw the name Jake again. I couldn't believe it. Was this a coincidence? I clicked on the comment and read it. It was written by someone who claimed to be a big fan of the band. The person wrote that they had met Jake at one of their shows. My heart started to race. Could this be the same Jake? Was it really him? Or was it just another fake? I had to know. I tried to find out more about the person who wrote the comment. I searched their profile and looked for any connection to Jake. But once again, there was nothing. It felt like everything was leading to a dead end. The more I searched, the more I felt like I was chasing shadows. I knew I had to be careful, but I couldn't stop myself from looking. I had to know who Jake really was. I spent the next few days digging deeper into the internet. I looked at every page, every link, and every post I could find, but there was no trace of Jake. I even searched for people who might have known him, but I came up with nothing. It was like Jake didn't even exist. His name wasn't real, and his pictures weren't real. It felt like he was a ghost, a person who had been created to fool people like me. As I sat in front of my computer, I started to feel angry. I had wasted so much time looking for someone who didn't even exist. I had trusted him, and he had lied to me. I thought about all the other people he might have fooled. How many other people were out there believing in Jake, just like I had? I felt a sense of betrayal that was hard to explain. It wasn't just about Jake anymore. It was about the lies and the hurt that came with them. But even though I was angry, I couldn't stop myself from wanting to know more. I had to find out everything. I had to know why he had done this to me. Why had he lied? What was his reason? I couldn't stop thinking about it. I thought about the fact that he had never told me anything real about himself. He had only talked about things that didn't matter, like his love for music. He had never mentioned his family, his school, or anything that could have made him real. It was like he had built a fake life online, a life that wasn't true, just to trick people into believing in him. I realized that I was not just looking for Jake. I was looking for answers. I wanted to know why people do things like this. Why do they create fake lives and hide behind lies? I wanted to understand why I had been tricked, why I had believed in someone I had never even met. As I sat there, feeling lost and frustrated, I made a decision. I couldn't just give up. I couldn't let Jake get away with his lies. I had to find out who he really was. I didn't know how, but I knew I had to keep searching. If I could find out who he was, maybe I could stop him from hurting anyone else. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I would keep looking no matter what it took. I started searching in a different way. Instead of just looking for Jake, I began looking for people who might have been close to him. I thought that if I could find someone who knew him, I might be able to learn the truth. It was a long shot, but it was the only chance I had left. I knew I had to try. The truth was out there, and I was determined to find it. I felt like I was getting nowhere. No matter how much I searched, no matter how many hours I spent looking through old posts, I couldn't find any real information about Jake. It was as if he didn't exist. His name, his pictures, everything was fake. I was stuck in a maze of lies, and it felt like I would never find my way out. But I couldn't stop. I had to know who he was. I couldn't just let this go. There was something inside me that wouldn't rest until I found the truth. So I kept searching. I looked for people who might know him. I even started looking at old forums and online communities. Maybe someone had talked to him before. Maybe someone had seen him at a concert or posted about him online. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, but I knew I had to keep going. Days passed and I didn't find anything useful. But then I had an idea. Jake had mentioned once in one of his messages that he liked to go to live music events. Maybe if I looked for shows or concerts he might have attended, I could find a clue. If I could find a connection to the places he had been, I might be able to track him down. I searched for upcoming events in my area, looking for anything that might match Jake's interests. I found a music festival that was happening soon. It wasn't too far from where I lived, and I remember Jake saying he loved going to live shows. Maybe he would go to this one. Maybe he had even mentioned it to someone else, and I could find that information. I decided to look deeper into the festival, hoping it would give me a clue about where he was. The festival's website had a list of performers and all the information about tickets and dates. But I wasn't interested in that. I wanted to find something about the people who had attended before. I started searching through old posts and reviews of past festivals, hoping to see something that might connect to Jake. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew it had to be there somewhere. Finally, after hours of searching, I found a comment in a blog post about the festival. It was a message from someone who had attended last year. They talked about meeting a person named Jake at the event. My heart started to race as I read the message. Could this be the Jake I was looking for? The comment didn't give much detail, but it said that Jake had been friendly and that they had talked about music for hours. They also mentioned that Jake had told them he was a fan of the same bands I liked. I couldn't believe it. This could be the break I was waiting for. I knew this was my chance to find out more. I looked for any way to contact this person who had left the comment. I wanted to ask them about Jake to see if they knew anything else about him. But the comment didn't have any contact information, and I couldn't find any other way to reach them. I felt frustrated again. It was like the closer I got to the truth, the more it slipped away. But then I remembered something. Jake had talked about a few of his favorite bands, and one of them was playing at this music festival. Maybe that was the connection I needed. If I could find someone who knew the band, I might be able to get a step closer to Jake. I went back to the festival's website and looked at the list of performers. One band stood out to me. They were a group I had never heard of before, but I remembered Jake saying he liked them. I decided to dig deeper into this band, hoping to find something that might lead me to Jake. I looked up their social media pages and websites, trying to find a way to contact someone who knew them. Maybe they had met Jake before. Maybe they could tell me something. I spent the next few hours looking at the band's pages. I found their Instagram and Facebook profiles, and I looked at all of their posts. There were photos of their concerts, videos of their performances, and comments from fans. I read through all of the comments, hoping to find something that could help me. Then I saw a name that caught my attention. It was a person who had commented on several of the band's posts. They seemed to be a big fan, and they had shared a lot of their own photos from past shows. I clicked on the person's profile, hoping to find a way to contact them. I looked through their photos and posts, but nothing stood out. I almost gave up, thinking it was just another dead end. But then, in one of the photos, I saw a familiar face. It was Jake. It was a blurry picture from a concert, but I was sure it was him. He was standing next to the person who had been commenting on the band's posts. My heart started to race. This was it. I had finally found him. The person who knew Jake was the same person who had been at the concert with him. I couldn't believe it. I had found a real connection to him. I quickly looked at the comment history on this person's profile. I found more pictures from concerts, and there were several posts where they mentioned Jake. They talked about how fun it had been to meet him and how they had enjoyed the show together. There was a post about the music festival that had caught my attention earlier. This person had mentioned Jake again, saying that they had seen him at the festival last year. Now I knew for sure that Jake wasn't just someone I had imagined. He was real. He had been to this festival and he had met people there. I started to feel a little more confident. I had found the first real clue. I wasn't ready to give up yet, but I needed more information. I knew I had to talk to this person who had met Jake. I didn't know how, but I had to find a way. I had to get closer to the truth. I needed to find Jake, and now I was closer than ever. As I sat in front of my computer, I realized that I had come a long way. The road to finding Jake had been long and hard, but I was finally getting somewhere. I wasn't going to stop now. I would keep searching until I found the answers I was looking for. I had found the person who had met Jake, but reaching out to them wasn't easy. I wasn't sure how to start or what to say. I had to be careful. I didn't want to seem strange or pushy, but I had no choice. I had to know more about Jake. I had come so far, and now I was closer than ever to finding the truth. I couldn't stop now. I thought about how I could contact this person. They seemed friendly in their posts, so maybe they would respond if I asked the right way. I decided to leave a comment under one of their pictures. It was simple. I just asked if they remembered meeting Jake and if they could tell me more about him. It wasn't much, but it was all I could think of. I waited for hours, staring at my screen, hoping for a response. But nothing came. I started to feel discouraged. Maybe they wouldn't answer. Maybe I had done something wrong. I told myself I had tried, and maybe it was time to stop. But then, as I was about to close my computer, I saw a notification. The person had replied to my comment. I couldn't believe it. My heart raced as I read their response. They said they remembered meeting Jake and that he was a very nice person. They talked about how they had a good time at the concert together, but they also said something strange. They mentioned that Jake had seemed a little distant at times, like he wasn't really there. It was a small detail, but it made me feel uneasy. Why would Jake act distant if he was just a regular person? It didn't make sense. I wanted to ask more questions, but I didn't want to scare this person away. So I thanked them for their reply and said I hoped we could talk more. I wasn't sure what to do next, but I knew I had to keep going. Every piece of information I found was leading me closer to the truth. The next day, I woke up to another message. It was from the same person. They told me that Jake had disappeared after the concert. They hadn't seen him again, and they didn't know where he went. This was strange. How could Jake just disappear? It didn't make sense. I was getting more confused. I thought about what I knew so far. Jake had been to the music festival and he had met people there. But after that, no one seemed to know where he went. There was no trace of him. It was like he had vanished. I couldn't understand it. I had to keep looking. I decided to ask the person more about what Jake had said during the concert. Maybe there was something he had said that could help me understand. I kept thinking about how he had always been a little secretive, even in the messages he sent me. Could he have been hiding something? I had to know, but the person never responded again. They stopped replying to my messages. I didn't know why. Maybe they didn't want to get involved anymore. Maybe they had told me everything they knew. It left me feeling empty and frustrated. I had come so close to the truth, but now it seemed like I was stuck again. I spent the next few days thinking about what I could do. I wanted to give up, but something inside me refused to let go. There was still a part of me that believed Jake was real. Maybe he wasn't who I thought he was, but he was still a person. I couldn't just forget about him. I went back to his social media profiles, looking for new posts. Maybe he had posted something recently, but everything was the same. His profile was still full of pictures of music events, but none of them were recent. It was like he had stopped posting. I started to wonder if I would ever find him. If Jake was hiding, would I ever be able to find out the truth? Days turned into weeks, and still, I couldn't find anything new. I began to lose hope. It felt like I had come to a dead end. The search for Jake seemed pointless now. I was tired of looking at screens, tired of hoping for something to change. But then something unexpected happened. One evening, while I was scrolling through social media, I saw a post that caught my attention. It wasn't from Jake, but it mentioned him. The post said that someone had seen Jake at the music festival last year. It was a short post, but it gave me a new lead. I clicked on the profile to learn more, but the post had no details about where Jake had gone or what he had been doing. It was like another puzzle piece that didn't fit anywhere. I spent the next few hours trying to figure out what to do. I had thought I was getting closer to the truth, but now it felt like I was farther away than ever. I wondered if I was just chasing shadows. But deep down, I couldn't give up. I had to keep looking. I decided to go back to the festival website. Maybe there was something I had missed. I searched through the site again, looking for any details about past events or any mention of Jake. But the website didn't offer much. There was a list of performers, pictures from the event, and posts from people who had attended, but none of it was helpful. I felt like I was searching in the dark. As I sat in front of my computer, thinking about how far I had come, I realized something. Even though I hadn't found all the answers, I had learned a lot. I had learned that not everything online is real. People can hide behind fake names and pictures. And sometimes we believe in something because we want to. But I still didn't know who Jake was, and that bothered me. I decided I would go to the music festival this year. It wasn't much, but maybe I would find someone who knew Jake. Maybe someone could help me understand who he really was. Even if I didn't find Jake himself, I might learn something more that would help me get closer to the truth. The search wasn't over yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to stop. I would find Jake, or at least find out who he really was. I wasn't ready to give up. The day of the festival finally arrived. I had spent weeks thinking about it, planning what I would do if I saw Jake or met someone who knew him. I wasn't sure what I was expecting. Part of me felt excited, while another part of me was nervous. What if I didn't find anything? What if I never learned the truth about Jake? I pushed those thoughts away and told myself I had to try. I had come this far, and I couldn't stop now. The festival was bigger than I expected. There were so many people there. The air was full of music, laughter, and excitement. But amidst all the noise, I felt small and alone. I had no idea where to start. I didn't even know if anyone at the festival would remember Jake. But I knew I had to keep searching. I walked through the crowd, trying to keep my eyes open for any sign of Jake. I looked at every face, hoping to recognize something familiar. I remembered how the person from the festival blog had mentioned meeting Jake at one of the concerts. I wondered if I could find someone else who had seen him, or maybe someone who had pictures of that same concert. The festival grounds were large, and there were different stages with bands playing all day. I decided to start at one of the smaller stages. Maybe I would find someone who knew Jake there. The music was loud, and the crowd was happy. But as I looked around, I realized I wasn't sure what to do next. Should I just ask people if they knew Jake? Would they even remember him? The thought felt strange. I continued walking, my feet tired from all the standing. I was starting to feel frustrated again. Maybe this was a waste of time. But then, as I was passing a group of people near one of the food stalls, I heard someone mention a name. It wasn't Jake's name, but it caught my attention. They were talking about a person who had attended last year's festival and had disappeared after the event. They didn't say much, but the name was enough to make me stop. I moved closer to the group, trying not to be obvious. I wanted to hear more. They were talking about how this person had seemed normal at first, but then acted strange near the end of the festival. They mentioned how he had left without saying goodbye, and no one had heard from him since. I felt a chill run down my spine. Could they be talking about Jake? I didn't want to interrupt the conversation, but I couldn't let this chance slip away. I waited until the group finished talking and then approached them. I asked if they remembered the person they were talking about. They looked at me curiously, and I quickly added that I was trying to find someone who had been at the festival last year. I didn't mention Jake by name, but I hoped they would understand. One of people in the group nodded and said they did remember the person. They mentioned that he had been very friendly at first, but then seemed to change after the concert. They didn't know where he went or what happened to him. They said they tried to find him, but it was like he had disappeared. I couldn't believe it. This sounded exactly like Jake. It was like everything I had learned up until now was leading me closer to this moment. I felt both excited and scared. I had found another clue, but at the same time, it raised more questions. Why had Jake disappeared? Why hadn't anyone heard from him since last year? I still didn't have the answers I was looking for, but I was determined to keep going. I thanked the group for their help and walked away, my mind racing with questions. I spent the rest of the day at the festival, hoping to find more information. But no one else seemed to know anything about Jake. I didn't give up, though. I kept looking for anyone who might have seen him or heard anything about him. The more I searched, the more it became clear that no one knew where Jake had gone. It was like he had vanished into thin air. As the festival came to an end, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I had learned something new, but I still didn't have the full story. I couldn't help but feel that something was missing. Jake had disappeared, and no one seemed to know why. I had spent so much time looking for him, and yet I was still left with more questions than answers. On the way home, I thought about everything I had learned. Jake had been real. He had been to the festival, and he had met people there. But something had happened, and now no one knew where he was. It was hard to accept. I didn't want to believe that he had disappeared for good. Maybe he had his reasons for leaving, but I couldn't understand why he would leave without a word. As I sat in my room later that night, I realized that maybe the search for Jake wasn't just about finding him. It was about understanding the truth. It was about learning that sometimes people come into our lives and then they leave without explanation. Sometimes we don't get the answers we want, but that doesn't mean we can't keep going. I had learned a lot from my search. I had learned about how people can hide behind screens and fake names. I had learned that things aren't always what they seem. But most of all, I had learned that it's okay to let go. I didn't have to keep searching for answers that might never come. I could accept that some things are meant to stay a mystery. The next day, I woke up with a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. I had spent so much time chasing after Jake, trying to understand him and the mystery behind his disappearance. But now I realized that I didn't need to know everything. Sometimes not knowing was okay. I would always have the memories of the good times we shared, and that was enough. I decided to stop searching. I didn't need to find Jake to find peace. I could let go of the past and move on. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had taught me something important. Sometimes the answers we search for aren't the ones that matter. What matters is how we choose to move forward, even without all the answers. And with that, I closed the chapter on Jake. It was time to move on with my life. The search was over, and I was finally free.